first game had such a clean concept of like the unconditional love a parent feels for their child. The second one, once we landed on this idea of the pursuit of justice at any cost, justice for the ones you love, it felt like, oh, there's a clean concept here, and there's a through line from the first game about love. If we never get to do it again, this is a fine ending point. And right, last bite of the apple, the story's done. The great thing about working at Naughty Dog is that we don't have to. It's always like, we would love another Last of Us, but if you guys feel like are passionate about something else, we'll support this other thing. Very privileged position to be in. I never take that for granted. I've been just thinking about, okay, is there a concept there? And for now years, I haven't been able to find that concept. But recently that's changed. And I don't have a story, but I do have that concept that to me is as exciting as one, as exciting as two, is its own thing, and yet has this through line for all three. So it does feel like there's probably one more chapter to this story.
Oh, baby! They're making a Last of Us Part 3. Oh yeah, dude. Now, we knew that this was going to happen. We knew that this was inevitable. But there was never a clear confirmation. There was never a clearer confirmation than this right here. This is as clear as it gets to tell us that even though a script isn't done, even though they haven't officially started a Last of Us Part 3, the fact that there is a concept, and a concept that Neil Druckmann is excited about, leads me to believe that a Last of Us 3 is inevitable at this point. They're going to make it. It'll probably be a few years before we see it, but I think for me personally, this is something that, and I think a lot of people have been wanting a third game. And while I do agree that if they were to end it on The Last of Us Part 2 and where that ended, yes, that could be a fine ending. But for me personally, I would love to see Ellie find peace. I really would. I would love to see Ellie find peace and find true happiness. And I think that A Last of Us Part 3 could potentially explore that option. Now, what that would mean, would that mean Ellie turning into a martyr, finally embracing her role and her responsibility, the cure that she has to potentially save humanity? Is she potentially offered another opportunity to do that and save humanity? That's originally what a couple years back, that was my first inkling of thought, was that, yeah, I think maybe The Last of Us Part 3 explores that idea, that maybe she has an opportunity to take back the choice that was originally taken from her. And, in doing so, she thinks about Joel and she thinks about all that he sacrificed for her. And that potentially maybe this time she has the opportunity to sacrifice that for her little one that she has. And that there becomes like this, there becomes this like full circle moment, which I think would be really cool. I think I could see The Last of Us Part 3 potentially exploring this idea that, Ellie goes back and she finds her, she finds Dina, she finds the child that they kind of, have together, and she kind of explores that. And I think that would be a really grand thing. And maybe, maybe the kid gets bit or something, right? And, she has to step in and potentially find a cure, and that cure potentially results in her sacrificing herself. Obviously, this is a very rough storyboard. It's just something that I thought of, and it's just one of many routes that I felt like The Last of Us Part 3 could take. Now, obviously, will they take that route? I don't know. It feels like in The Last of Us Part 2, they definitely stepped away from, focusing on the whole cure aspect, and maybe that's not what the game was ever about. It's more about what you're willing to do for someone that you love. And the second game kind of follows that a little bit. And maybe the third game follows that even further, right? Like I said, with her potentially being in a position where she has to, really put all of her feelings aside and finally understands why he made the decision that he made, even though it kind of screwed the entire world. And maybe Ellie gets put in that similar position where she makes a decision that is inherently, or instead of maybe a decision that's selfish, She makes a decision that's selfless, and I think that there would be something so beautiful about that. And gosh, I have so many like, now that the Last of Us Part 3 is seemingly confirmed to be much more of a possibility than it ever was in the past, I might have to do a whole separate video of you know, the ideals that I have for what a Last of Us Part 3 could mean, what the story could be, where it could go. I might have to write these things down because I had so many great ideas for where, you know, the Last of Us Part 3 could go. And there was an idea that I had that forces Ellie to confront the demons within her by potentially facing the demon, you know, outwardly, which would be Abby. Maybe she's forced to team up with Abby in a situation, and the two can finally understand each other, learn about each other, and realize that they're not so different than they originally thought. I think that would be a beautiful kind of tie-in to the previous game. But, you know, I'll save all that for a different discussion. The fact that The Last of Us Part 3 was seemingly teased at the end of this. Wow. I mean, what a treat. What a treat. I really enjoyed this. This was nice. I followed The Last of Us and have kind of covered this game through various parts of its development leading up to the release of The Last of Us Part 2 and even postward, right? Leading into the HBO series, leading into The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. This game means so much to me. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It is a game that I started content creation with. One of the first videos I ever made was a playthrough of The Last of Us in preparation for The Last of Us Part 2. And yeah, I've loved every second of seeing the development and the growth process, the development process, the growth that has been, you know, associated with many of the team members that have been a part of this game, and all that went into the creation of something like this. I mean, this is, for me, The Last of Us has always been so much more than just a gaming experience. It has been a real shift in the medium. It has been kind of the benchmark for what games could be. And I think a lot of developers have attempted in any sort of fashion to live up to the spectacle that was delivered by The Last of Us Part 2, and really the Last of Us franchise as a whole. And then the celebration of the Last of Us HBO series only continues to further how impactful a game can be when it's written well and it has a good story, has a good script, it has good characters, it has an inviting world. I mean, The Last of Us is just, it's such an incredible experience. It really is. I've loved every second of this game, and watching the director's cut was really special, was really nice. I really loved it. And I hope more games do this in the future. I really do. They did a Raising Kratos, which I thought was fantastic. And I would love to see that for more games in the future, behind the scenes look at the development process for the creation of games. I mean, if that was a job, I mean, I would love to, maybe I would just create that job on my own.